It's the Big Bark with the latest of the canines. The Big Bark, all the doggiest of headlines. With your hosts Darragh, Millie, Roxy and Bruno. They're the kind of dogs that you know.
It's time to talk about health, nutrition, training, talk with canine professionals, owners and dogs.
It's the Big Bark, the Big Bark, all the canine stories for you.
Hello and a huge welcome to the Big Bark Podcast, the show that brings you all the canine stories to you. I'm Darragh and joining me as usual are my canine co-hosts Bruno, Millie and Roxy. So we had another wonderful episode last week, and thanks again to my guests David Hartigan of Hemp Heroes and Alana Cahill of AC Photography for joining me in what was, I suppose, another top of the pops, shall we say, for the podcast. Once again, ranked as the number one podcast on iTunes in the pets and animals category for Ireland. So look, let's get right into it this week. Coming up later in the show, we have another wellness with your woofers. And, well, I tell you one thing, there's no wellness here because Roxy is going around and she's literally just... she has a cap of a Ben & Jerry's ice cream, would you believe? So, thank God we ate the Ben & Jerry's. But anyway, coming up later in the episode, we have Wellness with Your Woofer. And this week we're chatting with... Roxy, stop. We're chatting with Mark Kelly of Dogs and Dogs in Cork, who shares his story of how amazing... being around dogs has been for his mental health and how they've helped him through some tough times. We chat a bit about not just what Roxy has been up to this week, but an amazing thing that Millie did when my dad had a bad fall when out walking this week. And we're also chatting with Joe Auburn, co-owner of Irish company Holistic Hound, about the amazing natural dog product range that they have on offer to help not just dogs actually, but all sorts of animals with their ailments and issues. But look, first off today, while Bruno and Roxy are out there kicking the absolute crap out of each other, we're going to dive right into it and welcome Samantha Rawson back for Clever Canines. And Samantha's going to be here chatting all about your doggy training issues, and we have a good one lined up for today, which I'll tell you about right after this.
Clever Canines on the Big Bark is brought to you by the Canine College, run by champion dog trainer Samantha Rawson, a regular contributor to RTÉ radio and television. Samantha is a certified canine behaviour consultant, and with 30 years experience in the field, she has the knowledge and understanding to help any dog. Our services include individual dog training from basic to competition standards, assessments and behaviour consultations. The Canine College is set on 5 acres with a secure paddock and an indoor classroom. See thecaninecollege.ie or find us on Facebook for more information.
Well, Samantha, a big welcome back to the Big Bark.
Great to be here, Darragh.
So we're into season 4 now, Samantha, and as you might have heard there in the background, a little bit of playing going on from Bruno and Roxy, and I suppose that brings us into our topic for this week, which is a very good one actually, and it's about the dynamics of a multi-dog household. So, Samantha, you probably heard the bit of fighting between the play. It's a lot of play fighting that Bruno and Millie Bruno and Roxy tend to do there. But I suppose, like ourselves here, we have 3 dogs here now, so it's a real multi-dog household. And you can probably hear the 2 of them out there in the background. But,
yeah.
So, Samantha, okay, I suppose, first and foremost, we're going to talk about a few things here today. And, obviously you can hear the barking there. Well, okay, talk to us about how you integrate, I suppose, a new dog into a household that has other dogs already.
Okay, I suppose the most important thing for me, Darragh, as a dog behaviourist and trainer, is to ensure that the resident dogs, the already established dogs, that their life isn't upset too much and that they accept a new puppy and that they don't have to kind of lose any privileges that they might have earned or been used to before the new pup's arrival. So they're not discommoded in any way, that you remember that you got the third dog for you and not for the other dogs. The other thing then is from the puppy's point of view, from training the puppy, I want to ensure that the new dog bonds to people or has a human dog bond rather than a dog bond. Because when you bring another dog into a doggy household, obviously they will naturally identify with their own species. And obviously it's great if they're great friends, but you've got to ensure that if they're out together on a walk, that new dog listens to you. And sometimes if they're over bonded to each other, then they won't listen to you, and then you run into trouble. So as much as you want them to be friends, it's really important that the dog spends as much time with people, if not more time with people, than it does with other dogs. So I would always like it to kind of be 70% with people, 30% with dogs. And then once you know your dog is reliable and has a bond with you and its recall is good and all that kind of stuff, then you can increase their access to other dogs. So then maybe you might let that be 40% of the time with other dogs, and then eventually 50% of the time with other dogs, but no more than 50%. I want the relationship with me and dogs to be equally balanced. As a matter of fact, I prefer it to be in my favor. So maybe for me personally, it would be 70-30. But for your average dog owner, 50-50 is okay.
Okay, and look, I suppose we know, and it's something I definitely experienced when Roxy first came here. There's a tremendous amount, there can be a tremendous amount of jealousy from the older dogs that they're already here, and all of a sudden it feels like they may feel that they're being put out. How do dog owners avoid this?
It's really important when you've got a multi-dog household that you try and give your dogs time and attention individually, because dogs are actually quite jealous. They are social animals and they are jealous. And there's only one of you. I mean, if there's one, or maybe yourself and Jen, there's two of you. But, it's really important that dogs are given individual attention and that they never have to compete for attention, because most dog fights in multi-dog households, an awful lot of the time, it can be over the owner's attention. So I would tend to give them attention individually. I'd swap them around. I'd maybe have one dog in the room with me, put the other one out in another room or out in the garden, or vice versa. Or if there's a family in a house, say, listen, can you go in there into that room with that dog? Maybe can you take the dog to the shops with you? So that the dogs all are getting into individual attention from people. Or if they're on their own, they're learning to also be on their own, that they're not getting used to having company all the time. So it's about kind of rotation, but it's very difficult to give loads of dogs attention at the same time. So say all of my dogs are in with me, right? So I have 8 dogs. So if there were 8 dogs in the room with me, I would be ignoring everybody, because that's going to, if I try and divide myself 1 into 8, it's not going to work. So it's like, we come in from the field, we've played, we've done some training, whatever we've done. And then it's come in and settle down. And it's like, go to your beds. Nobody's getting any attention. So there's nothing to compete over.
That's actually very good advice, because I suppose, look, the one thing that I suppose I found myself personally with Roxy is she doesn't know when to switch off. She doesn't know when, I suppose, playtime is over. If that makes sense. And I've definitely seen it at say maybe 9-10 o'clock at night, that she'd be trying to get Bruno or Millie to play with her. Now Millie is 12. Yeah. Millie is a much older dog, so Millie rarely even bothers with her. It's more herself and Bruno that have that bond, that play together. Yeah. And it's almost like she doesn't know when to switch off, kind of. So it's puppy energy. Yeah. So I suppose when you have a puppy, how do you get them to realize that Darragh the night, especially when the others are tired, they need to relax. That's
your responsibility. So I know this sounds a little bit ridiculous, but I always give puppies a bedtime. So it's really important that puppies have a regulated day. So because she's a puppy and she's looking for a bit of crack and she doesn't realize that the day is coming to a close, she might then be bullying Bruno into playing with her. So then she learns to be a pushy puppy, because she can annoy another dog sufficiently that they will react to her. And sometimes attention is attention. It doesn't matter whether it's negative or positive. So she could be learning behavior that's going to come back and bite her in the backside later on. So the fact that she can annoy Bruno that late at night is not good for her education, not good for Bruno, and obviously not good for yourself and Jen because you're trying to chill out and relax. So I always give puppies a bedtime. So depending on what your schedule is, so say if you guys head to bed at 11 or something and she's looking for a bit of crack at 10 o'clock at night, I would maybe put her to bed at 9. So you settle her, you guys are still up, you know, there's still people around. There isn't a sudden loss of attention. There isn't a sudden loss of contact. But you put her to bed and say, sorry, sweetheart, your bed is 9 o'clock. And then that gives everybody time to chill out. It's also important for Bruno, as much as he might love her, it's important for him to have his own space and his own time and to have you guys to himself the way he did have before Roxy arrived. So that kind of special time between you and Jen and Bruno and Millie is important. So I would advise that you give Roxy a bedtime.
Yeah, and I suppose that applies to, I suppose, any puppy really, because, any puppy that comes into a house where there's older dogs already there.
Yeah.
So so Samantha, what other training tips would you have then for new puppies entering a house where there's already other dogs?
Okay, so sorry, before I answer that question, Darragh, I want to go back to your previous question about Roxy looking for a bit of crack at 10 o'clock at night. The other thing that's very important to teach dogs, and this goes for all dogs, but especially a multi-dog household, is to give them a signal that says the attention is now over, get lost. Okay, so I equate that with a kind of a human behavior where if you're on the phone to your friend, you wouldn't just hang up. You would let them know that the conversation is coming to an end, and then you'd say, see you, good luck, talk to you next week, whatever. So it's important that we offer our dogs the same kind of courtesy, that we let them know the attention is now over and it's time to go away. So I always give them a visual signal. So I would tend to kind of, cross my arms and kind of wave and say, that's enough. I'll give them a visual signal. Then I will break eye contact. So I will look at the ceiling or look out the window or look beyond them. And then I will give them an emotional cue that says, I'm no longer available. So if the dog persists and the dog could jump on your head, start swinging out of you, maybe try and pull a cushion off the sofa, it doesn't matter what the dog tries to do to get your attention. You have to completely and utterly ignore them so that they learn that that's enough means that's enough. When it's over, it's over. Dogs are really, really good at trying to demand our attention. So they've got to learn that you are consistent. And when you say something, you mean it. But that, to me, that's really important, that you tell the dog when the social interaction is over. So that's that one. The other thing about training tips for a multi-dog household, separating them, spending time with them individually is really important. And also for a young dog to practice your recall in the presence of the other dogs. So your other dogs are a great tool as a distraction, because if they're already trained and they're well behaved, then they can be role models for your new puppy. So it's really important to practice recalls in the presence of the other two dogs with the puppy, so that they learn no matter what distractions are around, if there are other dogs around, when I call you, you come to me. And from my point of view, play is really important. Of course, you can use treats and you can use food, but play is a much, it's a much better bond building exercise than just using food. Because a dog can come back, take a treat off you and just run away again. Whereas if they're playing with you, they're staying with you and they're actually engaged and they're having fun with you. So it's not such a negative to call them away from having fun with another dog. If you're going to say, come on, let's play with me. They're much more likely to listen to you if you're fun to be with.
Some great tips there, Samantha. I suppose there's one as well that I've got in. It's actually a question that I've got in from one of our followers here on Instagram. And the question is, my puppy eats everything. I mean, everything. I've tried everything to get him to stop. Any tips?
Okay, so the first thing you have got to look at there is diet, because an awful lot of dogs are fed boring food. So if their food is boring, as in, dry kibble or dry biscuits, then everything else in the environment is attractive. But puppies are very curious creatures, and they will naturally pick up everything and put it in their mouth. So it's part of the exploratory development stage. It's part about being curious, but it also could indicate that their food is quite boring and everything else is attractive. So I tend to give puppies lots of household rubbish to explore. So if I was having a yogurt, I would give the dog the empty yogurt pot. I'll give them an empty toilet roll to flither. I will give them, an empty tea box to flither as long as there's no tea in it. I will give them, a butter carton. So say, I had a tub of butter and that was empty. I wouldn't throw it in the rubbish bin. I'd give it to the dog to lick out. So as much kind of natural, products or natural items in the house that you can give them. Like, say if you were, replacing your dishwashing brush, the brush for washing your dishes. If you were replacing that, I'd give the old one to the dog. If you were replacing your wooden spoons, I'd maybe give the dog the wooden spoons, the old wooden spoons. Now, all of this is under supervision. I would never give any item to a puppy unattended. I will always supervise a puppy if I'm giving them stuff to chew. The other thing is, obviously, there's loads of natural kind of chews now in the shops that the commercial market have copped on, that people are into natural products rather than kind of, man-made products. So there's loads of natural products on the market now. But it's important to give dogs variety. So don't just give them the same thing over and over again. And if they have a load of toys, maybe leave them 2 or 3 toys, but rotate the toys every 3 days so that they have constantly new stuff to explore and engage with. And you should find that reduces the chewing and the teething. They are teething, they are chewing, they're looking for stuff to explore. And it's up to you to provide them with a wide variety of textures so that they don't destroy your house.
Yeah, and I suppose one thing that Roxy actually loves doing is plastic bottles. She just loves just chewing on them. It's something I've noticed that if we have a plastic bottle that's empty, she just walks away with it and sits on the floor in front of us, and it's okay, well, that keeps you happy. Why do I waste this 20 euro on the steady for you? But that's I suppose that's not right. Okay, so we have one other question before we wrap up here, and this comes in from actually one of my colleagues. Actually, this comes in from Sarah Sullivan, Dublin. This comes in from, and Sarah has asked lead pulling. Sarah has a lab too, and she's asked lead pulling, even with a slip lead. Have you any tips?
Personally, I don't like slip leads. Slip leads are great in an emergency, or if you're trying to, maybe take a dog from an owner in a kennel situation or in a veterinary situation. Slip leads are great for security for dogs. But from a training point of view, I don't like slip leads, because if the dog, kind of gets choked, if you pull a slip lead and the dog is choking, well, that immediately sends a negative message between the dog and you. So I personally don't like slip leads. So I would maybe put an ordinary collar on the dog and sit down and watch TV with it, or walk around the house or the garden with it. So I try and introduce the lead on a collar, or if you prefer a harness. But if she's using a slip lead, I would imagine she'd be okay with a collar. And just get the dog to associate that the lead is not exciting. Try and make it quite boring. If you think about how the guide dogs are trained, they don't get madly excited when their harness goes on. They get when their harness is taken off, they get excited, because then it's you're off, you're free. But a lead should be quite boring. So you need to introduce that around the garden and around the house, and maybe sit down and watch a movie or make a phone call with the dog sitting on a lead beside you. And then gradually build up your distractions to outside. But unless that dog is walking nicely with me in the garden, I wouldn't bother going for a walk. The other thing is, sometimes if a dog gets a fright on a lead and the lead is obviously attached to the owner, the dog can pull away from what it considers frightening, which can sometimes be the owner. So I would test that by maybe putting a longer lead on it, maybe on a collar, but put quite a long lead, a long rope, and see if you give the dog a little bit of space, does it stop pulling? Or does it pull no matter what the length of the lead is? You need to test that. Because sometimes I've found with pups, they're pulling to get away from something rather than just pulling on the lead. So it depends on how old the dog is, and what way it was trained on a lead. But you've got to just make sure that there's no fear behind that behavior. That is it pulling because it's excited, or is it pulling because it's frustrated, or is it pulling to get away from the lead? So there could be a few causes there.
Well, that's great, Samantha. And listen, we're going to leave it there for today, and we'll have you back again next week, and we'll have another interesting topic in mind for next week as well. Samantha Rawson from the Canine College, thank you so much for joining me on the Big Bar today.
Thanks, Darragh.
Clever Canines on the Big Bark is brought to you by the Canine College, run by champion dog trainer Samantha Rawson, a regular contributor to RT radio and television. Samantha is a certified canine behaviour consultant, and with 30 years experience in the field, she has the knowledge and understanding to help any dog. Our services include individual dog training from basic to competition standards, assessments and behaviour consultations. The Canine College is set on 5 acres with a secure paddock and an indoor classroom. See thecaninecollege.ie or find us on Facebook for more information.
And a huge thanks once again to Samantha Rawson for joining me today to talk all about the dynamics of a multi-doggy household, which is very appropriate given that, well, we recently introduced Roxy to Bruno and Millie, as you all know. And a lot of stuff that Samantha talked about there, there's definitely been challenges with Roxy. At times, I suppose I do actually call her a challenge. She's been a bit of a bully at times to my big Bruno. Come here, Bruno. Bruno's walking in the door here to me now. Come here, Bruno. Come here. He's walking in. And Bruno is actually quite, I suppose, sore at the moment. Bruno was recently diagnosed with hip dysplasia, so his leggy is sore. He had an injection yesterday out at 3 vets with John outside there. So he's starting to feel a bit better. The injection is definitely helping, but this fella is such a lovable little rogue, especially when he's sick. He's always sore and thing. All he wants is his cuddles. That's all our Bruno wants. Isn't that right, Bernie? It is. And you don't want the puppy to be annoying you. You don't want that puppy to be annoying you. I know. And speaking of the annoying puppy, she's halfway to, I suppose, the Antarctic by now, or the Arctic Circle or something. She's digging that hole so deep. Still working in the same hole. But she's been a good girl. Like, she's getting along great with Bruno. But I suppose the whole digging a holes thing, as you can hear, there's Bruno plopping around outside in the hallway there, and he's laid down now. But slippery when wet and muddy. That's the name of our episode this week. And the reason for that is because trying to catch that little bitch that is Roxy. That's the only word that can be used for at times. Correct phrase to use as well, by the way, because she is actually technically a bitch. She is a female dog, which is what a female dog is called, is a bitch. So she's trying to catch her when she's muddy and wet. Like, she just slips through my hands. She completely slips through them, and she just runs all over the place. And I suppose runs amok. Well, very appropriate to say that. Let's see, what else has she done this week? She has calmed me down a bit. She has now torn up nearly every one of the teddies in the house. She's not overly fond of teddies. And I have a little squeaky thing that came out of one of the teddies I keep in my pocket, and she barks at that. More videos on that going up during the week on our TikTok. Yes, we're on TikTok now, actually. So look us up on Big Bark Podcast Official, I believe is what we're as over there. So look us up on TikTok. You'll see a few videos of Roxy over there. And yeah, she's been... oh God, such a diva. I think it's this IKC attitude that she has. She thinks like, she's just this, oh, I'm a posh dog, I'm IKC registered. Oh, I'd love to know if anyone else has IKC registered dogs out there. Do they also have this little attitude about them that they're better than other dogs? Because, Christ, that's the way that she definitely thinks anyway. Yeah, so Roxy likes to think that she is the best dog in the house. That those titles go to Bruno and Millie because they are the best dogs. And as Samantha said, we need to make sure that they get lots of love and lots of attention, and they are still getting their own attention and their own love. But what happened this week, which was very interesting, is Millie had a brilliant close experience with my dad. And she helped him after a fall. But I'm not going to go into that just yet. You can tune in a small while after we chat with our next guest, and I will fill you in on that, how Millie helped my father. So yeah, moving on. Our next guest. We are welcoming Joe Auburn from Holistic Hound to the show. And Joe is going to tell us all about the products that Holistic Hound offer. So we're delighted to get into this. This again was a pre-record. It was done during the week, whereas the segment with Samantha a while ago was actually recorded live. So that's a new one for sure for me. But yeah, anyway, on to Joe and Holistic Hound. Okay, and now today I'm joined by Joe Auburn from Holistic Hound. And Joe's here to tell me all about the different products, the different natural products that Holistic Hound offer for your dogs, and what the benefits of the products are. Joe, big welcome to the Big Bark.
Thank you very much, Darragh. Thank you for inviting me and having me online.
So, Joe, I suppose I come across your products before. My partner works in Pet Stop in Limerick, so I've definitely seen some of the products inside there. And like I mentioned to you before we came on, I've definitely used the Snout and Paw Cream before, but you have such a huge range of products. Now, before we dive into that, I kind of want to get, I suppose, a bit about your own background and how did you come up with the idea of Holistic Hounds? Where did it come from? And how has everything been going? Okay, and now today I'm joined by Joe Auburn from Holistic Hound. And Joe's here to tell me all about the different products, the different natural products that Holistic Hound offer for your dogs, and what the benefits of the products are. Joe, big welcome to the Big Bark.
Thank you very much, Darragh. Thank you for inviting me and having me online.
So, Joe, I suppose I come across your products before. My partner works in Pet Stop in Limerick, so I've definitely seen some of the products inside there. And like I mentioned to you before we came on, I've definitely used the Snout and Paw Cream before, but you have such a huge range of products. Now, before we dive into that, I kind of want to get, I suppose, a bit about your own background and how did you come up with the idea of Holistic Hounds? Where did it come from? And how has everything been going?
Yeah, so I started Holistic Hound itself actually back in the UK back in 2005. But I'd actually been training in complementary therapies for animals for about 3 to 4 years before then. And it generally came about because I got my very own first dog, purely by accident. I was supposed to be emigrating to America, but instead I actually ended up going to a garden centre that was closed. So I ended up in a rescue centre and came away with a dog. And there was no looking back from there. What I found was, or what I realized very quickly, was that this dog was completely dependent on me making the best decisions for that dog in terms of everything, in terms of diet, in terms of meeting their emotional needs, their physical needs. And one of the things that actually happened with this dog in particular was she had a contact allergy with a grass. And it didn't seem to matter, no matter what I did, from the vet side of things, it didn't really make it any better. And then a friend of mine actually suggested very randomly, she said, "Oh, have you tried homeopathy?" And I was actually a working engineer at the time, so very scientifically minded, very evidence-based. And I was just like, what are you talking about? And she said, look, give it a go. And, it won't do any harm. It may do some good. And I gave my dog this particular homeopathic remedy, and right in front of my eyes, the allergic reaction that she had just disappeared. And I just couldn't believe it. And it made me kind of think, oh gosh, maybe there's more to this than meets the eye, and maybe I should look into it. And that's really what started my training off. And I went and did training in a wide range of complementary therapies for pets. I ended up then specializing particularly in herbs. They seemed to kind of call to me. I felt like a particular affinity to them. And so I started at that point in my kitchen at home, making products that I could be using for my dogs in a preventative healthcare, in a supportive healthcare way, that meant that I didn't automatically have to reach for pharmaceuticals or go to the vet, with very kind of small problems that most dog owners encounter on a day-to-day basis. And it sort of moved from there to the fact that a lot of my friends then started using my product, and it then just seemed the natural progression to really kind of share it with the rest of the world and develop the range of products that we have today. So we have a fairly large range now. It definitely feels quite large range. We've kind of got about 20 plus products covering anything and everything. What we're trying to do really is cover all the everyday health issues that dog owners will come across at some point in their dog's lives. So some of them are kind of ongoing things. So, you might want to use them for parasite control. So preventing worms, preventing fleas and ticks, or treating fleas and ticks, all the way through to kind of more specialist support. So when your dog gets particularly old and you need to kind of really support their key organ functions, so their liver, their kidney, their brain function. So, a lot of dogs have cognitive decline, all the way through as well to very kind of specific illnesses that dogs may have as well, that you can just kind of get support for. So that's really where we're at with a lot of our products. And the range keeps growing, much to the dismay of my business partner. Just as we find kind of things that can really sort of help a lot of dog owners with their day-to-day health and well-being of their dogs. And it's really sort of about enhancing the use of natural herbs that are around us that have been helping with healthcare for millennia, for thousands and thousands of years, and just going back to the roots of of that and looking at the root cause. So quite often, when I'm kind of talking with people about specific issues that their dogs may have, it's not just necessarily applying something topical, but it's also looking at treating from the inside out as well as from the outside in, and really looking at the dog as a whole. So really, hence why we call ourselves Holistic Hound, because it's really kind of looking at making sure that you are meeting all of their needs. So not just their physical and nutritional needs, but also their emotional needs, their social needs, kind of their environmental needs, all of these different aspects.
Sounds like you have quite a product range there to kind of fit every need. Now, I'm kind of going back there, like you were going to a garden centre to probably buy flowers and you end up coming home with a dog. Like, yeah. Imagine going back if that hadn't been the decision that you had made, that you haven't actually adopted that dog. Like, I'm a great believer that everything happens for a reason. And I do think that definitely did that day happen for a reason.
It definitely felt like it, because the garden centre, we'd gone and we had a whole plan in place for moving to America. We'd given ourselves 6 months to do that. And had a complete life plan, essentially. Went to a garden centre. It was supposed to open at 10. It didn't. It opened at 11. So we went next door to the rescue centre, and it was the strangest thing, Darragh. Really was. It was. We walked around the entire area, going, "Oh, look at the poor doggy. Oh, isn't that sad? Oh, isn't that sad?" But not really connecting. And then we turned this last corner, and there was this little staffy dog, my little Taz. And she was stood on an upturned bed, barking her head off, bark, 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 really kind of putting people off because she was barking so much. And she stopped and her head swung towards us and she looked at me. And I swear, if she was wearing a watch, she would have looked at the watch and gone, "Where the hell have you been? I've been waiting so long." And it was instant. And from that day, so we kind of took Taz on, and obviously not only was it our first dog, but it was also our first rescue. And, you know, all of our dogs since have actually been rescues. And I think she was there to kind of teach me about how much I could bring to you know, the rescue dogs and to her life and to everybody else's. And then what has seemed to happen as we've sort of gone through the last 20 odd years is I have dogs that come into my life, whether they're my dogs, and you know, or whether they're client dogs, almost as if there's something I don't know yet, and so I have to learn. So they kind of bring with them their own set of problems and unique ways of looking at things, and require me to do a bit more work and look into things and come up with solutions. And it seems like it is fate that I end up with a dog for, you know, whatever circumstance. That means that just comes to show you haven't learned everything yet, that every day's a school day. You've got to come up with something new for this approach. And that's where my passion is kind of helping these dogs who have kind of struggled historically, and just coming up with new ways of being able to support them.
Fantastic. So talk me through some of the specific products that you have. I'm looking here on the website and I see everything from mite treatment, snout and paw balm, to worm treatment, tick treatment. Does literally every kind of product, liver and immunity, especially in older dogs, for example. Like, how important is the likes of liver and immunity, and just in general, like supplements for kidneys?
Yeah. So a lot of the products that we have are not what you would call like-for-like replacements for pharmaceuticals, but are different ways of looking at things that have historically been treated using pharmaceuticals almost as a firefighting option. So it's kind of moving from that firefighting because there's an issue to actually preventing the issue in the first place. So we have a full range of what you would call parasite control. So we have our worms away. So instead of actually having the monthly or the 3 monthly harsh chemical treatment that you would get from the vet, that is great because it eradicates all the worms, but it's systemic. So it works throughout the entire body. So can have really damaging effects. But also it means that once you have taken that tablet and got rid of whether it's your worm burden, whether it's fleas or ticks, your dog is then, he's immune compromised because you've really given him a real belt of strong chemicals. But also he can actually pick worms up the very next day. And he could then have worms for another 3 months before you actually treat. And it's just a cycle of kind of constantly eating away at their own natural immune system. So, if you kind of take worms away, for example, it's a preventative monthly maintenance product where you, every 3 days, 3 days once a month, you basically give this product and it maintains kind of an unattractive environment for the worms. So it destroys any worms or eggs that are present and then just maintains this kind of environment, which means that the worms actually won't take a hold in the first place. So you're kind of treating but preventing as well. Similarly, with our ticked off product, for example, that's about building their immune system and their natural ability to actually deal with these parasites. So ticks, for example, are 100% opportunistic. If anybody was to say to you, here, this is a marvelous tick product, it's going to stop absolutely every single tick from ever latching onto your dog, then they're not being honest, because that just isn't the case. But what you need to do is get to a stage so that if a tick does decide to have a free ride on your dog or your cat or whatever, it might take a bite but doesn't want to actually hold on or stick around because it's not, the dog's immune system is too strong and the taste of them and the smell of them is not, conducive for a tick to hang about. So we have those products. Then we have things like the Mighty stuff is another parasite one. And we actually developed that with vets because they actually found that with a lot of the skin mites, the traditional pharmaceuticals, the mites have actually become resistant to them. So they're not actually being effective in working. So again, it's a combination of creating an environment which prevents mites from actually taking hold, but also eradicates mites that are present as well. So it's doing both of those at the same time. So then we have the kind of the maintenance products, if you like, which is the snout and paw. You've mentioned that you'd use that, which is sort of about keeping your dog's paws crack free. A lot of dogs have issues with sore cracked noses as well, and hyperkeratosis. And you have dog-eared, so about keeping your dog's ears clean and mite-free. Bright eyes, similar. That is great for kind of treating and soothing sore eyes or any kind of conjunctivitis or allergic conjunctivitis, whether it's bacterial or allergic, and reducing tear staining. And then we have, you then sort of move on to the products that are more for specific issues. So if you have an itchy dog, for example, we have our Ditch the Itch spray, which is a good one to kind of nip that whole cycle of the more they itch, the more they scratch in the bud. But with the Ditch the Itch, is a good example of where we say treat inside as well as outside. So it's a great topical spray to actually reduce that itching in a dog in an instant. And it breaks that mind cycle as well and helps the dog kind of relax and chill out. But longer term, you want to be getting to the root cause of what's causing the itch. Is there a lack in their diet of essential fatty acids or something like that that's actually causing the itch? Then you have the Calm and Balmy, which is for kind of dogs who have high levels of anxiety or fear of thunderstorms or kennels or something like that. And it uses a herb in particular called valerian, which really kind of just helps the dog kind of almost take a deep breath and go, oh, okay, chill, relax. It's not the end of the world, and can really help just bring them down from that red back into the amber and into the green. We have a lot of rescue sites, for example, that use the Calm and Balmy and the Calm Canine, which is more of a kind of a nutritional supplement to bring the dogs who are very stressed coming into a rescue environment, bring them back down to a level that they can actually kind of feel more secure, more relaxed, and are actually then open to kind of addressing their situation and learning and being easier to rehome. So that's kind of very handy. We have then our situational products, so such as the Heal Me Quick, which is just a great first aid product. Immediately stops bleeding and then starts to kind of heal and soothe the skin or, any kind of grazes or cuts or anything like that. So it's just a great one to just have on the shelf. The snout and paw is a great one to have on the shelf should you ever need it for any kind of skin issue. The Travel Well, if you have a dog that doesn't travel particularly well and does a lot of drooling or a lot of panting, then that can just really help take the edge off travel for them. So that, again, you can then actually use desensitization techniques to actually make it a more enjoyable experience for the dog. Now, some dogs don't travel well because they can't get equilibrium with their center of gravity. So actually, it's always going to be an issue. But an awful lot of dogs don't travel well because of they haven't been desensitized to that movement, to the being in the car, and that you get that trigger stacking with association of fear. And so actually the Travel Well can help to just bring in that desensitization and resolve that issue fully. And then we have all the nutritional supplements, which is sort of our Tummies, Eat Me, the flaxseed oil-based products that you were talking about, Calm Canine and the liver and immunity and old dog. And these are really, so the Tummies is a great one, again, just to have on the shelf and have in the cupboard, because it's something that you can literally just give to your dog for 1 or 2 days in a row, and it sorts out any diarrhea issues, any nausea, any vomiting, even if a dog is constipated as well, because the herbs in there actually adapt to whatever the body needs. So it's just very, very handy to have on in the cupboard, just sitting there whenever you need it. But also, if you have a dog with a chronic long-term digestive issue, an upset digestive system is really fundamental to building or resolving an upset digestive issue, I should say, is fundamental to building a strong immune system. The two are irrevocably, I can't say that word. The two are linked. They reckon it's about 85% of the immune system is actually directly linked with the state of the gut. So if your gut is out of balance and the flora isn't correct, and you haven't got a strong digestive system, it's automatically going to knock onto your immune system. So getting that right is kind of key. So we have the other supplements, then we have our Eat Me, which is a kind of a daily supplement that you can just add to your dog's food, whatever you're feeding them, and it just gives them a nice balance of herbs that kind of help speed up the digestive system, line the gut, produce the right gut flora and bacteria, and make sure that you're really kind of supporting a strong digestive system with the dogs. Then the other dietary supplements are where you were talking about kind of liver and immunity, and as a dog ages, one of the key things with aging dogs is that they do need a little bit of support. Everything starts to slow down, the circulation slows down, their ability to get what they need out of food slows down, their liver and kidney function starts to drop off. And particularly with kidney function, you can kind of go to about 70 to 80% of your kidney function lost before they show any symptoms. And then, of course, it's like they're falling off a cliff. So by actually supporting them early on, and giving them everything that they need, particularly, as dogs age, lots and lots of essential fatty acids, making sure that you get that balance of omega-3 and 6 and 9, just really helps oil the machine almost, and gives them their body more ability to do what it needs to do to look after them as they get old. And then we do have a very specific range of products called our fundamentals range, and that's much stronger and targeted support tonics. So we would have like heart health and mobility and canine cognitive dysfunction, all these different things. That's pretty much it.
Well, it sounds like you have something there to, I suppose, cover everything. And I've been looking at your site there, and the product range does look fantastic. So just to remind people, if they want to buy from you, what's the easiest way to do that?
We are kind of stocked in a lot of local pet shops. We're in the pet stops, but we do have our own website as well, so they can always order direct. We kind of do a flat rate shipping, just mainly because it makes our life easier. But it means that, you can kind of get a good load of products for a very good shipping deal. But otherwise you can, kind of call into your local pet shop. And if you do have a pet shop that doesn't stock us, we're always happy to talk to pet shops as well. We don't kind of, we're happy to stock large and small pet shops. We don't have kind of any restrictions on anything like that. So if you want your local shop to have us and they don't already, then give them a shout.
That's fantastic, Joe. Joe Urban from Holistic Hound, thank you so much for joining me today on The Big Bark, and I wish you all the best in the future.
Okay, thanks so much, Darragh.
Once again, huge thank you to Joe there, Joe Urban from Holistic Hound. Big thanks to her for joining us. And yeah, that is quite fascinating to know about their products, because I've definitely used a couple of their products in the past for the doggies. Their Snout and Paw Balm, I've definitely used that. Found it very, very beneficial for the dogs when I've used it in the past. And if you want to know more about Holistic Hound, buy their products directly from them. Well, like I mentioned, you can buy them in any old good pet shop. So Pet Shop, one of the biggest, I suppose, sellers that I've come across of Holistic Hound products. So pop into your local pet shop, but have a look on their site as well, holistichound.ie, and it gives you a full list of local stockers as well. So there's tons of them really around the country. So I'm looking here, and there's some, I believe, in probably nearly every county going. So yeah, pop onto their website, holistichound.ie. Some great products there. I'll definitely be checking in more into the likes of, say, the likes of the tummies, because sometimes the dogs' tummies can get a bit upset. But again, the Snout and Paw Balm I find is very good. Just like things like that. The mobility spray is one now with Bruno's, I suppose, mobility issues that he's having lately. That's one I'm also going to be looking into. So we'll definitely have a good old look at that. That is the fundamentals mobility, and there's the flexibility one as well there. So yeah, let's see what else there's. Flexibility. Oh, Calm Canine, that's actually a very good one too. There's an adventure backpack there for all sorts of different products there, and all natural, which is great. Fantastic stuff. Oh, and the mighty stuff. If your dogs get ear mites, that's another really good one to get as well. So, look, you can pop onto their website, holistichound.ie, check all the products out there. You can buy from them directly, and they're fairly quick as well to ship things to you as well. So, okay, I told you before that I had a story about Millie. Now, Millie, she did something amazing this past week gone. So, okay, so as most of you know, I work full time. So, during the day, trying to get the dogs out for a walk is quite hard because just can't get them down to UL, which is our favourite spot during the day when they want to be going on out walkies. So, can't get them down there. And unfortunately, I suppose, like, I miss that element, not being able to walk them every day. But what I do love is that Dad gets to take them walking. He gets to take them off. He gets to meet people down there. Unfortunately, one day last week, Dad had a bad fall down there. UL is a great spot for walking your dogs, especially like Bruno and Millie, who walk off lead. They're well used to being walked off lead down there. I know some people don't agree with off leash walking, but they always come back. Now, the walkway that goes around the 4G pitches on the Darragh campus, that's where we usually take them. Great walkway. Dad was walking along there and he tripped over some, I believe it was some like weeds that were sticking out. The one thing I would like to say, if anybody working in UL facilities management is listening to us, or if you know anyone who works in UL facilities management, would you please tell them to cut the feckin' weeds over on the North Campus? It's an absolute disgrace. Given this complete bullshit that it's for the bees, it's all for the bees, we can't cut it. Yes, you can. You just stop being so lazy and cut it. Because, number one, my father is 75. Is he 76 now? Let me see. 75. He's 75. His legs aren't great at the best of times, so his balance isn't the best. But no one, no matter what age you are, should have to fall over bloody weeds that haven't been cut because you're using some crappy excuse that the bees, lads, there's no bloody bees around over there. So what you're doing over there is just completely pointless. Anyway, that's my rant over on that. Anyone knows anyone in UL facilities management, there you go, you can tell them. Right, okay, so Dad was walking along, and he fell over these blasted weeds. And now, Bruno and Roxy were both off lead as well. Roxy has become very, very good off lead. She's really good, really great. Sticks with Bruno, doesn't run off on her own. But they had walked on. Millie stayed with Dad. She sat there with him, and she actually went right down, from what I'm told. She went right down, and she allowed Dad to use her as kind of, I suppose, a support to get him to stand back up. So, like, that is an amazing thing for a dog to do. Like, we're always talking about how great dogs are and how they're so supportive, and they're great emotional support dogs. They're great, like, I suppose, support dogs to older people, to people with injuries. But Jesus, that was the first time I've ever seen Millie to do that, and I'm so proud of her because she stayed with Dad. And I will say the other two, they wandered off away themselves, but they came back. They didn't run away. Bruno kept an eye on Roxy. So fair play to Bruno, fair play to you for doing that. And Roxy, she's in the bed, I believe, at the moment. So God knows what she's tearing up right now. But she stayed with Bruno, and the two of them came back. And they came back with one of the other doggies that we'd often meet down there, Maggie. Maggie is a small schnauzer, mini schnauzer type dog. And came back with Maggie and Maggie's owner, Paul. So by the time they come back around to where Dad had actually got himself back up, thanks to Millie. Now, that's amazing, I think. And I think fair play to Millie for being that support there and for really helping Dad as well. Now, speaking of support and doggies being support to people, we're circling back around now here to our mental health series. And this week we're delighted to welcome Mark Kelly to the show. So again, this was pre-recorded last week. And look, I'll be straight honest, a lot of our interviews are pre-recorded because it's when it suits everyone really to get the time to do this. So yeah, pre-recorded last week, but okay, let's see, what was I saying? Jesus, I forget what I'm saying half the time. But yeah, so Mark runs Dudes and Dogs down in Cork, and this is an outlet for men to, I suppose, not even an outlet, it's a space for men to go and just walk the dogs with other men. So for men to be around dogs and other men, don't even have to talk, just go for a walk. But if they want to talk, men are it's great to see something like this there, because you can just chat about anything, chat about sports, chat about the weather, which is very shy at the moment, but it's a great initiative. And Mark joined me last week. This is a long enough story now, round the 30-minute mark, so our show today is going to be well over the hour, 20 hour, 30 nearly, but I want to let this play in full, and you can let us know then on social what you think about it. I'd love if people share the entire episode on social media as well, because that way at least then sure we can start and getting this more publicity and getting the stories out there and letting people know that this is an actual platform that people can use to share their own story. Okay, and continuing on now from last week, after having Alana Cahill from AC Photography on to give us her own story about how dogs and animals have helped her through, I suppose, difficult times and life-changing events in the past. We're continuing that segment today, and would like to be joined today by Mark Kelly, who runs Dudes and Dogs Walk and Talk in Cork here in Ireland. And first of all, Mark, a huge welcome to the show.
Darragh, thank you very much. It's a great honour to be asked to be on here. I've been a big fan of yours since I first came across the podcast, and loving to get a chance to talk about how dogs have really helped me over the past year or two in my own mental health journey.
All right, and a bit later on, Mark, we're going to actually have, I suppose, a chat as well, a bit more about Dudes and Dogs. But for now, what I'd like is, I'd like for you to tell your own story, I suppose, of how dogs have helped you. So I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks very much, Darragh. Well, I suppose the first important point to note is that at the moment I don't have a dog. The dogs have always been a part of my life. We always had dogs around the house. I grew up around them. In fact, when I was born, we had a little Jack Russell Terrier called Patch. And Patch took to me especially and would growl if anyone came near me. And one of my mother's fondest memories was when I was learning to walk. Patch would always walk in front of the fire so that I wouldn't go there and would growl at me if I did. But as I say, dogs have always been around the house. Grew up with them. So I suppose in terms of how they relate into my own journey around mental health, mental wellness, and mental illness, I struggled with mental illness most of my life, but I wasn't formally diagnosed until about 2009. I had a serious episode at work, which led to me actually having to take time off from work. And some months later, I was living with my grandmother at the time, and I came home, and all of a sudden there was this golden Labrador sat in the kitchen, and I had no idea what it was doing there. She said that there was a family around the corner, and the dog had been hit by a car, and they had found him, took him to the vets. Basically, they had nowhere to put him. So my grandmother said she would take him. So lo and behold, he became my pet, and he really helped me through some tough times. That first year or two where I was struggling, really struggling, and he was a rock for me. Now I had him for about 4.5 years. And I was away one weekend, and when I came back, he was gone. I didn't know what happened. According to my grandmother, she was around the house, and the gate was left open, and he got away. My own suspicion is that he was taken. There had been a spate of dog thefts in the area around the time, and that's my own personal take on it. But I don't know. That was 2014 when Max was gone, and it was really tough losing him. I felt very, very guilty because I wasn't an ideal dog guardian. There were times when I would sort of not walk him as much as I should have, and he sort of became more of an inconvenience than realizing him for the treasure that he was. And there's a few regrets I have about that, but we had another couple of dogs around the house, little toy Pomeranians, and I ended up sort of taking those on, and they were a great help around the house, especially as the years were progressing. My grandmother developed dementia, so having the dogs around the house for her was great because it was a great source of company for her. Plus, I loved having the little guys running about. They were great. And again, dogs are, I would say to anyone who's going through any kind of mental health struggles, even if you're not in a position where you can have a dog, being around dogs is something that will only help you. And in fact, that's sort of what led me on to get involved with Dudes and Dogs. And I'll not talk too much about Dudes and Dogs, but I'll talk sort of about why I got involved and how it's been helping me, because not having a dog and I moved to Cork from Derry in I moved to Cork from Derry in 2018, and I went back to education, and I came into youth work, community work, with a view to settling down here. I felt that Derry was becoming a place that was just not going. I didn't feel I was ever going to get well up there, and there were a lot of different reasons for that. I guess there was a lot of I beat myself an awful lot over how I had treated Max and sort of how I should have done better by him, and I almost feel at times that him being taken was a punishment in a way. That was tough for me. So for the past 4.5 years, I haven't really been in a position where I could have a dog. I was sharing a house, and it just wouldn't have worked. Now, I've been very, very lucky to come into a position now where I do have a space of my own, and I have a landlord who's, I'm hoping, reasonable and open to the idea of me having a pet again. I certainly hope so. He's a vet, so he should be okay with the idea. And plus, I talked to him a little bit about Dudes and Dogs and what I was doing with it, and a few other organisations that I'd reached out to look into the possibility of maybe fostering a dog again to see how it would sit with me and how it would settle. And then I was doing my work placement out at a family resource centre, and I was working alongside a community healthcare worker, and he came up with the idea of a walking group for fellas based on dudes and dogs, which was in existence already in England. And this was just after the first long period of lockdown back in 2020. So we felt that it would be a great way for fellas in the local area to get out, get reconnected, and as well as that, be a nice chance for them to come together and show off their dogs, and we get a chance to see what other people were doing and how their dogs were. That's where it started, and it grew legs from there. And after maybe a year of doing that unofficially, sort of off my own steam, I reached out to the official organisation over in the UK and asked if they would be interested in me sort of setting this up officially in Ireland and taking it from there. And luckily they were. Rob Osmond, the fellow that founded the organisation, he was very open to the idea. His own story is similar to mine. He's had difficulties with his own mental health. What he found, though, was walking his dog really gave him an opportunity to air a lot of things that were on his mind. And he said even though he didn't get any response, he felt all the better for being able to get that weight off his shoulders. For me personally, it was the chance to connect with other people, which is what really drew me to it. And as I started being around the dogs a lot more, it made me realize that these animals were always meant to be a big part of my life, and how empty I felt without that connection to them. And it's since my involvement with dudes and dogs, it's been an absolute lifesaver for me. Even though I don't have my own pets, I would go and collect my friend's two dogs, and being able to help him out because he's very busy and he doesn't get a chance to walk them all the time at the weekends. It's doing something for me. It's doing something for him. I love getting to spend time with George and Lily. They're just it's such a therapy and such a tonic. And more it's helping me reconnect with the sense of playfulness and childlikeness that I felt very disconnected from and I had lost, especially during COVID. Being able to get out and connect with the dogs and my friends helped me through that time. It really helped me manage probably I'd say one of the more difficult times in my life. At the time, it didn't really feel that difficult. I just felt that I was just going through the motions. But it actually was one of the toughest periods of my life, and I think I was going through one of the worst depressive episodes in my life, even though I was still, from about 2018 to 2021, I was having one of the toughest times in terms of my depression. But I was so busy and I was so focused on a number of different things, and then having my degree to focus on was great because I was making great progress with that. I'd gone to college a couple of times throughout my life, and for one reason or another, they failed. I failed to graduate, and it was always hanging over me. I always felt when I was applying for jobs that I was sort of trying to bluff my way into the interviews so I could get a chance to show people that I had the talent and I had the skills, but I never had the qualification to back it up. And as well as that, coming back to study in youth and community work was a big shift for me. I was only having lost someone so close to me, I realized my true purpose and passion in life was working with other people and helping people, and particularly young people. And that's something now that I hope to progress through. I hope that in the very near future I will have a dog of my own, hopefully maybe two. And when that's the case, they're going to be a vital part of any work that I do, because I really want to be working with young people again, and young people who are just in need of a little bit of support and guidance, and having the dog alongside me. I think it's really a reflection of who I am, the playfulness, the curiosity, this was the devotion. They're just beautiful creatures, and it's so nice. It's humbling actually to realize that this living creature is so dependent on you and loves you unconditionally. Most dogs I encounter now, they just seem to warm to me, and I could never understand that. I think it's because by reconnecting with the dogs, it's helped me reconnect with the side of my personality that I kept hidden for so long, and it's really helped me to embrace that side of myself and to accept it and not try to hide it. I just think that more and more, the idea of having a dog for me was something that kept me going through some tough times. It gave me a focus. I think if I hadn't had that drive and that purpose, I probably wouldn't have pushed myself on to find a job that was going to allow me to move into a space where I could have an animal. I think it would have just stayed as a sort of a fantasy, and I'm so glad it hasn't. And I'll probably be pinching myself when there's a little schnauzer sat on the sofa next to me. Originally it was plans for a Doberman, and then I thought it would be a great idea to test out the notion of a Doberman as a therapy dog, because I absolutely adore them. Every time I see one, I'd melt. I'm like a child. I have to go over and talk to the owners. I have to see them. I get giddy when I see one. But having an animal like this, it requires a huge level of responsibility. And the more and more that I looked into it, the more I realized that it's an idea I was in love with, but the reality of it just wasn't practical. But never say never. I say if I ever stumble across a house with 30 or 40 acres on it, then I may have a school of Doberman running about. That's sort of that'll be the pipe dream. But at the moment, I'm working away with dudes and dogs. I'm hoping over the next course of the next 6 months or so to get some more promotion out there about it. Hopefully, we can attract a few more people. I'd like to examine the prospect of developing some type of lifestyle and training program around it that could help help men who are going through some tough times. I think at the moment men are finding it very tough to cope with a lot of the pressures of life, and loneliness and isolation is a big part of that. And for a lot of guys who might be in positions like me where they really want to have a dog, but they're just not able to. Still being able to have that connection to a dog is a huge thing. It certainly has given me a much more positive outlook on life. It's helped me to manage my own mental health condition a lot better, and it's given me a sense of purpose and a drive on to do something and to hopefully share that love and connection with other people and let them come into a space where they can feel comfortable, they can feel relaxed, they can just enjoy a little bit of space, a little bit of time. That's in a nutshell there. That's sort of my own journey with mental health and how dogs have been a part of my life, and how at the moment they're helping me immensely, because I don't think I'd be managing as well as I did if I didn't have that connection to my friends' dogs and to my friends as well.
And thank you so much, Mark, there, for sharing your story. And like, I completely agree with you on a lot of the points that you made there. I think, especially in the last few years, during lockdown especially, was a very tough time mentally for a lot of people who only had, like I touched on a couple of weeks ago, who only had their dog as their companion. But like, for a lot of people, the dogs are what have got them through these difficult times. And I love what you're doing as well with Dudes and Dogs. It's a fantastic idea. And like, I think you're right. It's something like men need to be, I suppose, more open about mental health as well. It's been this, I suppose, the stigma that's been there for years and years. Especially, like, I know growing up, for me, it was a case that you just got on with things. And men didn't talk about mental health. And I'm delighted to see that there's groups like Dudes and Dogs that are out there. They're helping men to connect and just helping people to connect with each other through their dogs. I think that's a wonderful idea.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point you raised there. And hopefully we are helping to remove a lot of that stigma. I think it's because we don't emphasize the mental health side of it. It's more about just giving fellas a space where they can come together and connect. Like, it's guys who are coming along to the walks. Like, you don't have to be going through a tough time. You might just be finding that you might have an hour free on a Saturday or Sunday morning, and you thought, you can think to yourself, I might as well go and meet some new people. And out of the original group that started, 4 of us aren't from Cork. And what we found was that as men, it's really difficult to like, if you're not into sports, if you're not going to the pub, and obviously then you couldn't do either. It's really difficult as a man, and you're coming through your 30s into your 40s, to meet friends and to meet other fellas that you might connect with. what we find is that, having your dog there is great, because it's similar to the man's shed. The man's shed works because it's activity focused interaction. That's where the magic lies. Men don't feel readily comfortable coming together just to talk, but if you're coming with a focused activity, that breaks down a few barriers. And if you're, I suppose, for a lot of men, if you put it out there and say mental health talk for men, a lot of guys will go, God, I'm not having any trouble. But if it's just walk and talk, and that's all it is, it's a walk and a talk. You can talk about whatever is going on for you. We talk an awful lot about sports. There's an awful lot of banter. There's a great cultural education in it too. We've got a guy from England. We have a guy from Portugal. There's an American guy comes along, and it's great to find out about where they come from. It's great to find out about how they're settling into life in Ireland. And even myself, as a Northern Irishman, I suppose I feel in many ways I can relate to the foreigners more, because I say I am, for all intents and purposes, I am a foreigner here. So it's nice to connect with other people, and it's nice to connect with people who don't have any preconceived ideas of you, and they just take you at face value. And I'm very, very happy to say that those guys have become. I say all the people I've met on the walks and the people that have stayed on the walks have become very close friends of mine, and they're people that I am very proud to be considered their friends, and I'm very proud to be able to help them in any small way that I can.
That's fantastic, Mark. And listen, once again, thank you so much. It means a lot that you've come on today to share your story, and I'm hoping that when people hear your story, it will encourage more people as well to come on to share their story, because I think it's very important to actually get these stories out there and just let people know that nobody's alone.
No.
There's always someone there to listen, and I'm hoping that through this that people will hear these stories, and people will start to recognise that I suppose dogs are great emotional support animals as well, and dogs are always there for us.
Yeah, no matter what. Darragh, thank you so much for those kind words. That means a lot, and I'm just to say I feel very, very honoured, very privileged that you agreed to have me on, and I do hope that this, at least, if we can get one or two people to think about it, and can kick on a little bit over these next 6 months and get the word out there a little bit more, and maybe try and get one or two more walks going, then I think that would be a success in my eyes. Listen, I'll not take up any more of your time, Darragh. Just once again, thank you for having me on, and I will be sure to spread the word far and wide about it.
Thanks ever so much, Mark, and we'll leave it there for now. Mark Kelly from Dudes and Dogs in Cork, and if you want to find out about more about Dudes and Dogs, Mark, what's the best place for people to find out about it?
They could find out about it on our social. We're on Insta, we're on Facebook. If you just search Dudes and Dogs. Now, if anyone is looking to come on to a walk, we would ask that you would book. It's Sunday mornings, 10 a.m. We meet down at the Marina Park, just behind Park Equive in Cork. So if anyone wants to book on, it's dudesanddogs.co.uk. But say if you can get on there and book, that'd be great. We're looking to to get some statistics together as we're going for funding over the next while, and just to show that there are people coming on and people getting booked on. But other than that, if people just even if they just Google Dudes and Dogs Cork, they'll get access to a few articles out there about us, and I can share my contact details if people do want to get in touch with me. So if anyone does need to reach out to me, my mobile number is 085 135 0195. No problems there. It's out in a few areas anywhere, so it's not privileged information. But yeah, if anyone wants to come along, or if anyone wants to talk, or is anything that's sort of on their mind, that they can reach out to me. I'm more than happy to signpost or get them out on a walk whenever they can.
That's great, Mark. And Mark, thanks ever so much for that, and thanks for joining us today.
No bother, Darragh. Listen, look after yourself, and I will look forward to hearing more podcasts.
Okay, and a huge thanks again to Mark for joining me there. And that's about it for this week's show. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Bruno and Millie and Roxy are waiting for their walk, and I'm going to see if Bruno can do some sort of a small walk, because he's just been, like I said, he's been in a bit of pain. I don't want to overdo it with him. I just want to make sure that he's able to get out and about anywhere. But yeah, that's it for this week. As always, follow us on our social media. On Instagram, Facebook, The Big Bear Podcast. On our TikTok, Big Bear Podcast Official. And on Twitter, Big Bear Podcast. I'm trying to get them all kind of aligned somewhat, but we'll figure that out at a later date. So hopefully we can get them everything aligned. And, well, we can just, make sure that it is what it is. And we can, like I said, we can enjoy, all the stuff on social media. We can enjoy the fact that Roxy is stealing the show over on TikTok. And I hope you enjoyed the episode today. And it's been a long one, but huge thanks to all my guests. Huge thanks to Samantha for coming Clever Canines today. Delighted to have Samantha back, and she'll be joining us again next week. Great to have Joe Orban from Holistic Hound on to tell us all about her products, and we'll have hopefully another businessy person on next week as well to tell us about their products. And a big thanks to Mark Kelly for joining us to share his story as well. Well, that's it for today, and thank you for joining us. This is the Big Bear Podcast. I'm Darragh Burke. You had been joined by my co-hosts Bruno, Millie and Roxy. The Big Bear Podcast, the show that brings all the canine stories to you. Have a good week.
It's the Big Bark with the latest of the canines. The Big Bark, all the doggiest of headlines. With your hosts Darragh, Millie, Roxy and Bruno. They're the kind of dogs that you know.
It's time to talk about health, nutrition, training, talk with canine professionals, owners and dogs.
It's the Big Bark, the Big